You're under arrest for Terrorism Act. Oh, never mind. You're not a terrorist.
So, who is terrorist? And what is terrorism?
My definition of terrorism is the use of physical violence by a non-state actor against civilians in order to achieve a political goal.
My personal definition of terrorism is a violent public display of fear-mongering carried out by any foreign or domestic individual of that country.
That terrorism is a tactic in the use of violence by an organized group in order to instigate fear and achieve political objectives.
So I think terrorism is the actions of certain groups being used to change policy or changing society using violent actions.
According to Oxford Dictionary, terrorism is an unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims.
Well, according to Collins, terrorism is the use of violence, especially murder and bombing, in order to achieve political aims or to force the government to do something. Jessica Stern, an American scholar and academic on terrorism, has learned that people are motivated to become terrorists by reasons that may have little to do with religious and political narrative they spin. They may be driven by fear, love, hate, idealism, trauma, a search for identity, a craving for adventure and glamour, or by greed for money, land, and power.
Do you know what they all have in common? None of this definition mention religion, nationality, race, or ethnicity. So, what is it with this stigma?
Oh my God! Oh my God! Go!
2017, hitting 1 man dead and 20 people injured, driving at 40 miles an hour. Isn't this a terrorism act?
We have heard about white supremacy very often before. It's not something that we're unaware of, but why many are still in denial of this? This belief that white people are superior than others just because of their race had and still has an impact in the world, not exactly in the nicest way. During Reconstruction, white supremacists formed political and social groups to promote whites and oppress blacks and to enact laws that codified inequality.
White supremacy traces are everywhere along the US history. Some even say that white supremacy is the start of the country, what built it in the first place. Prior to the Civil War, white supremacy and racism were seen as something common. Even after blood, sweat, and tears all this time, the United States has not been cured from them. Namely, the Ku Klux Klan, founded in 1865, the Knights of the White Camellia, White League, and Red Shirts. Those are only some of many groups that promote the ideology. KKK was used as a vehicle for white Southern resistance to the Republican Party's Reconstruction-era policies, which pursue political and economic equality. Its second generation was not only anti-black, but also took a stand against Roman Catholics, Jews, and other foreigners. And we come to this very day, when it still secretly shadows many aspects in the US, such as education, politics, even entertainment. White supremacy is splintered into dozens of groups with similar ideologies. It successfully created terror and caused trauma.
White supremacy is a dangerous ideology that, just like Muslim extremists, can also lead to reckless acts that cost people's life. They have the exact purpose to create terror and frighten people with political aims in pursuit. In other words, terrorism.
Sunday night, a 64-year-old white man from Nevada opened fire on a crowd of more than 22,000 people at a country music festival in Las Vegas, killing more than 50 and wounding more than 200.
We refused to believe it was a shooting until it just kept going and going. And then Chase and Aldine left the stage, and then everybody started fleeing. And we started fleeing. We had to hop a gate to get out.
Now our suspect was identified as Stephen Craig Paddock, 64 years old, a white male from Mesquite, Nevada. We have no investigative information or background associated with this individual.
In August, a 22-year-old white Nazi sympathizer from Ohio spat his car into a crowd of anti-racist protesters in Charlottesville, Virginia, killing a woman and injuring at least 19 others. In June, a 66-year-old white man from Illinois shot a Republican Congress members during an early morning baseball practice, severely wounding several people, including Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana, the House of Representatives Majority Whip. In May, a 35-year-old white man from Oregon named Jeremy Joseph Christian began harassing Muslim teenagers on a train in Portland, telling them we need Americans here. Two men interceded. Christian then stabbed and killed them both.
The FBI looking into whether hate crime charges will be filed against an alleged white supremacist accused of stabbing two Good Samaritans to death on a commuter train on Portland.
Were stabbed in the neck and the other in the stomach.
Witnesses say it started when two young women, one of them wearing a hijab, boarded the train, and Jeremy Christian immediately went on a hate-filled tirade.
Get out to the country, that he doesn't like Muslims because they're criminals.
Witnesses say at least two men stepped in trying to calm Christian down, explaining the suspect then pulled out a knife and attacked them. Police say 53-year-old Licky Best died at the scene and 23-year-old Delisha Namkran Mesha was pronounced dead at the hospital. The suspected killer only making it a few blocks.
He's refusing to drop the knife.
Before he was arrested.
And then, 50 dead after terror attack at Orlando LGBT club Pulse.
Prosecutors showing jurors how casually Omar Mateen entered the Pulse nightclub, casing the venue for 11 minutes through that doorway, a packed dance floor. Mateen then leaving the club, moving his car to a closer spot before coming back in. This time with his assault rifle opening fire on that dance floor. Then moving to another part of the club. Within 6 minutes, police entering through the lobby, their guns drawn as they see the full horror inside, officers yelling to the wounded to get out if they can. Mateen holding up in the restrooms for the next 3 hours. Outside, SWAT teams busting through an exterior wall.
Shots fired north bathroom, shots fired north bathroom.
Within moments, engaging Mateen in a gun battle, killing him, but not before he took 49 lives.
Terrorism is a dangerous act we all have to fight against without discrimination. It can be anyone, and it does not represent a race, religion, nationality, or even a culture.